The station smelled like rust and old smoke. Kang Do-yoon walked through the crowded market with his head down and his hood up. He had learned long ago that the best way to stay alive was to become invisible. On stations like Kira 7, nobody asked questions. Nobody cared who you were or where you came from. That made it perfect for a man with his kind of problems. 5 years. 5 years since the mission that changed everything. 5 years since he led 12 soldiers into the heart of the Solaran Empire and destroyed their secret weapon facility. The Empire had been building something terrible there, a virus designed to kill only humans. His team stopped it, but only 3 of them made it out alive. The Empire put a bounty on his head so large that even his own people might be tempted to turn him in. So Do-yoon ran. He ran to the edges of known space, to stations that barely appeared on any map. He took small jobs, fixed engines, moved cargo, and never stayed anywhere longer than a week. He trusted no one. He had no friends. He had only survival. The market was busy today. Traders from a dozen different species shouted about their goods. Strange fruits, weapon parts, stolen technology, and things Do-yoon did not want to know about. He pushed through the crowd, heading toward the docking bay where his ship waited. He needed fuel cells, and then he would leave. Another station, another hiding place, another day of looking over his shoulder. Then he heard it. A scream, cut short. It came from one of the narrow alleys between the market stalls. Most people did not even turn their heads. On Kira 7, screams were common. Smart people ignored them. Do-yoon was not always smart. He moved toward the sound, his hand sliding beneath his coat to touch the handle of his pistol. The alley was dark and narrow, filled with broken crates and garbage. At the end of it, he saw 3 men surrounding a young woman. They were big, armed with knives and cheap energy guns. The woman had her back against the wall. Her clothes were torn at the shoulder, but she was not crying. She was not begging. She stood straight and looked at them with cold fury in her eyes. "Last chance," one of the men said. "Come with us quietly, or we hurt you first and then take you anyway." The woman said nothing. Her jaw was tight, her hands clenched into fists. She was afraid. Do-yoon could see that, but she was not going to show it. One of the men reached for her arm. Do-yoon moved. The first man did not even see him coming. Do-yoon grabbed his wrist, twisted it until the bone cracked, and threw him into the wall. The second man turned, raising his gun. Do-yoon was faster. He stepped inside the man's reach, drove his elbow into his throat, and caught the gun as it fell from his fingers. The third man tried to run. Do-yoon shot him in the leg. He went down screaming. The whole thing took less than 10 seconds. Do-yoon stood in the alley, breathing hard, the gun still raised. The 3 men lay around him, groaning and broken. He looked at the woman. She was staring at him with wide eyes, but there was no fear in them now. Only surprise. "Are you hurt?" he asked. She shook her head slowly. "No. I am fine." Her voice was strange. The accent was imperial, but softer somehow. More refined. Do-yoon looked at her more carefully. Her clothes, even torn, were expensive. Her hair was clean and well kept. Her hands were soft, without calluses. This was not a woman who belonged on a station like Kira 7. "Who are you?" he asked. "My name is Yuna," she said. "I am a merchant's daughter. I was traveling with an escort, but we were separated. These men found me alone. Immediately. 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 Immediately." Do-yoon did not believe her. Merchants did not dress like that. Merchants did not speak like that. But he was not going to push. Everyone on the frontier had secrets. He had more than most. "You should get off this station," he said. "Find your escort and leave. This is not a safe place." "I know," she said quietly. "Thank you for helping me. You did not have to." Do-yoon shrugged. "Habit," He turned to leave. But then he heard footsteps. Many footsteps. Moving fast. He looked toward the mouth of the alley and saw figures approaching. They were not the same as the thugs he had just beaten. These men moved with purpose, with training. They wore dark armor and carried military-grade weapons. Their faces were hidden behind helmets. Professional killers. Doyun recognized the type instantly. "Down!" he shouted, grabbing Yuna and pulling her behind a pile of crates. Energy bolts burned through the air where they had been standing. The shots were precise, controlled. Whoever these people were, they were not simple criminals. Doyun returned fire, forcing the attackers to take cover. His mind raced. 3 more enemies, maybe 4. Good weapons, good training. He was outnumbered and outgunned in a narrow alley with a civilian to protect. Bad situation. "This way," he said, grabbing Yuna's hand. There was a maintenance hatch behind them, half hidden by garbage. He had noticed it when he first entered the alley. Old habit. Always know your exits. He pulled open the hatch and pushed Yuna through. She dropped into the darkness below without hesitation. Brave, Doyun thought. Or desperate. He followed her, pulling the hatch closed just as another burst of energy fire scorched the metal above his head. They were in a maintenance tunnel now. Pipes and wires covered the walls. The air was hot and thick. Doyun activated the small light on his wrist and started moving, pulling Yuna along behind him. "Who are they?" he asked as they ran. "Those are not regular thugs. Those are trained soldiers." Yuna was silent for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was small. "I do not know." Another lie. Doyun could hear it in her voice, but there was no time to argue. Behind them, he heard the hatch being forced open. The soldiers were following. They ran through the tunnels for what felt like hours. Doyun knew stations like this. He knew how they were built, where the hidden paths were, how to disappear into the machinery. He led Yuna through crawl spaces and ventilation shafts, through forgotten corridors that even the station's own workers had forgotten. Finally, when he was sure they had lost their pursuers, he stopped. They were in a small storage room, surrounded by old equipment and dust. Yuna sat on a crate, breathing hard. Her fine clothes were now dirty and torn in several places. But her eyes were still clear, still watchful. "You fight well," she said. "Like a soldier." "I was a soldier," Doyun said. "A long time ago." "For Earth?" He nodded. She studied him with new interest. "The Empire says humans are primitive, that you barely know how to use technology, that you are savages who only understand violence." Doyun smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "The Empire says a lot of things." Outside the storage room, the station hummed with life and danger. Somewhere out there, professional killers were hunting for the woman sitting in front of him. And Doyun, against every rule he had made for himself, had just become her protector. He did not know who she really was. He did not know why the Empire wanted her. But he knew one thing for certain. His quiet life of hiding was over. They stayed hidden in the maintenance tunnels for 2 days. Doyun knew the hunters were still out there, searching every corner of the station. He could feel them moving above, their heavy boots shaking dust from the old pipes. Professional soldiers did not give up easily. Whoever wanted this woman wanted her badly. Yuna did not complain. She did not cry or panic or demand to know what was happening. She simply followed Doyun through the darkness, eating the small rations he carried, sleeping when he told her to sleep. It was strange behavior for a merchant's daughter. Most civilians would have fallen apart by now. This woman was either very strong or very used to dangerous situations. Doyun suspected both. On the second night, they stopped in a small junction room where several tunnels met. Doyun sat against the wall, cleaning his pistol by the dim light of a chemical lamp. Yuna sat across from him, her knees pulled up to her chest, watching him work. "You have done this before," she said. "Hiding, running, fighting." "Many times," Doyun replied without looking up. "Why?" What did you do that makes you run? Do-yoon was quiet for a long moment. He did not talk about his past. He did not talk about the mission, or the men he lost, or the price on his head. But something about being trapped in the darkness with this strange woman made him want to speak. 5 years ago, I led a team into Solaran space, he said. The Empire was building a weapon, a virus that would kill only humans. Every human, everywhere. We destroyed the facility, and everyone inside. Yuna's eyes widened. The burning of Kirath. I heard stories about it. The Empire said it was a terrorist attack, that human savages murdered thousands of innocent scientists. They were not innocent, Do-yoon said flatly. And there were not thousands. Maybe 200, all of them working to create something that would have killed billions of my people. Yuna was silent. Her face was hard to read in the dim light. She could be horrified by what he had done. She could be afraid of him now. He would not blame her. The galaxy's most wanted terrorist was not ideal company, but when she spoke, her voice was not afraid. It was thoughtful. The Empire tells us that humans are dangerous because they are violent, but they never explain why humans fight. They just say, "You are animals who know nothing but destruction." And what do you think? Do-yoon asked. Yuna looked at her hands. I think anyone who creates a virus to kill billions is the real animal. And anyone who stops them is something else entirely. Do-yoon felt something strange in his chest. It had been a long time since anyone had looked at what he did and seen anything other than murder. This woman, this imperial citizen raised on propaganda and lies, had just called him something other than a monster. He did not know what to do with that. The next morning, Do-yoon decided they could not stay hidden anymore. The hunters were too persistent, too organized. Sooner or later, they would find this place. They needed to get off the station and disappear into the darkness of space. His ship, the Baekho, was waiting in a private docking bay on the far side of the station. Getting there would be dangerous. The hunters had surely posted people at all the main corridors. They would need to move carefully, using paths that only Do-yoon knew. They traveled for hours through forgotten sections of the station. Abandoned residential blocks filled with dust and memories. Old industrial zones, where machines had stopped working decades ago. Do-yoon moved like a ghost, always checking corners, always listening for footsteps that did not belong. Yuna kept pace with him perfectly. She never complained about the difficulty of the journey. She never slowed them down. When they had to climb through a collapsed section of tunnel, she pulled herself up without hesitation. When they had to crawl through a narrow ventilation shaft, she did so, in silence. You move well, Do-yoon said when they stopped to rest. Better than most civilians. I had training, Yuna said carefully. Dance lessons, physical education. A merchant's daughter must be graceful. Another lie. Dance lessons did not teach someone to crawl through ventilation shafts without panic. But Do-yoon let it go. They all had their secrets. They were close to the docking bay when Do-yoon heard it. A sound that made his blood freeze. Footsteps ahead, moving with the same quiet precision as the hunters. He pulled Yuna into a doorway and pressed himself against the wall, holding his breath. Two of them walked past, their weapons ready, their helmets scanning the corridor with infrared sensors. Do-yoon could see the emblem on their armor now. A black sun, surrounded by a ring of stars. His stomach dropped. Imperial shadows. The Emperor's personal assassins. He had heard stories about them during his military days. They were the best killers in the galaxy. They answered only to the Emperor himself. They were sent for only the most important targets. Kings, generals, leaders of rebellion. People who threatened the very foundation of the Empire. Why would they be hunting a merchant's daughter? Do-yoon looked at Yuna. Her face had gone pale. She recognized the emblem too. Of course she did. Everyone in the Empire knew what that black sun meant. We need to move, Do-yoon whispered. Now. They slipped through the corridors like ghosts. Twice more they had to hide from shadow patrols. Each time, Do-yoon felt death pass within arm's reach. These were not ordinary soldiers. These were the Empire's finest killers. If they caught him, he was dead. No trial, no negotiation, just a quick end in some dark corridor. And yet his greater fear was for Yuna. Whatever she was hiding, whatever secret she carried, the Emperor himself had decided she needed to die. That meant she was important. That meant she knew something or was something that could shake the very foundations of Solaran power. They reached the docking bay just as another patrol rounded the corner behind them. Do-yoon sprinted across the open space, pulling Yuna with him. Energy bolts burned the air around them. He heard shouting, commands. The sound of more boots hitting metal. The Baiko's door opened at his command. He threw Yuna inside and dove after her, slamming his palm on the emergency launch control. The ship roared to life, breaking free from its moorings with a terrible shriek of torn metal. Warning lights flashed. The station's automated defenses tried to lock onto them, but the Baiko was fast and Do-yoon was desperate. They broke free from the station's gravity well and shot into the darkness of space. Behind them, Kira 7 grew smaller and smaller until it was just another point of light among the stars. Do-yoon sat in the pilot's chair, breathing hard. His hands were shaking. That had been too close. Far too close. He turned to look at Yuna. She was sitting on the floor of the cockpit, her back against the wall, her eyes closed. She looked exhausted. She looked afraid. But she also looked relieved. Like someone who had just escaped from a prison. Imperial shadows, Do-yoon said. The Emperor's personal killers. They do not chase merchants' daughters. Yuna opened her eyes. She looked at him for a long moment, and he saw something change in her face. The careful mask she had been wearing began to crack. No, she said quietly. They do not. Who are you really? She did not answer immediately. She looked out the window at the stars, at the vast darkness that surrounded them. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. I am not ready to tell you. Not yet. But I will. I promise. When we are safe, I will tell you everything. Do-yoon wanted to push. He wanted to demand the truth. But something in her voice stopped him. There was pain there, fear, and something else. Something like hope. Fine, he said. But wherever we go next, we go together. And when you are ready, you tell me everything. Yuna nodded. A small, tired movement. Thank you, she said. For saving me. For trusting me. Even though you have no reason to. Do-yoon turned back to the controls. Outside, the stars waited in patient silence. Everyone deserves a chance to tell their story, he said. Even people with secrets. The ship flew on, carrying two strangers into the unknown. Behind them, an empire searched. Ahead of them, answers waited, and Do-yoon could not shake the feeling that his life had just changed forever. The Baiko drifted through an asteroid field. Its engines cold. Its lights dim. Do-yoon had learned this trick long ago. Among the floating rocks and ancient debris, a ship could become invisible. Imperial sensors had trouble finding anything in the chaos of spinning stone and metal dust. 3 days had passed since their escape from Kira 7. 3 days of silence, of careful movements, of watching the darkness for signs of pursuit. So far, nothing. But Do-yoon knew better than to relax. The shadows were patient. They would keep hunting until their target was dead. Yuna had spent most of those days sleeping. The escape had taken everything out of her. She had pushed her body beyond its limits, and now it demanded rest. Do-yoon did not mind. It gave him time to think, time to wonder who this woman really was and why the most powerful empire in the galaxy wanted her dead. On the 4th day, she finally emerged from the small cabin at the back of the ship. Her face was pale, but her eyes were clear. She had washed and changed into some of the spare clothes Do-yoon kept on board. Simple clothes, working clothes. She looked almost normal in them, almost like she belonged in this life of running and hiding. "How do you feel?" Do-yoon asked. "Better," she said. She sat down in the co-pilot's chair and looked out at the asteroids floating past. "Where are we?" "Nowhere." "That is the point." Grabbed. She nodded. She understood. Of course she did. She was running from the same empire. Silence settled between them. It was not uncomfortable. Just two people who did not know what to say. Finally, Yuna spoke. "You have a wound on your arm. From the fight in the corridor. You have not treated it properly." Do-yoon looked down. He had forgotten about the burn on his forearm. An energy bolt had grazed him during their escape. He had wrapped it in a torn piece of cloth and ignored it. "Thank you for watching. With Consentadoc. We're next art of Kantu. And Tebel. There were more important things to worry about." "It is fine," he said. "It is not fine. It will become infected. Let me look at it." Before he could protest, she was kneeling beside him, unwrapping the dirty bandage with careful hands. Her touch was gentle, but confident. She examined the wound with the focused attention of someone who knew what she was looking at. "You have medical training," Do-yoon said. It was not a question. "Yes." She did not look up from his arm. "Among other things." None." She cleaned the wound with supplies from the ship's small medical kit. Her movements were precise and practiced. This was not someone who had learned medicine from books. This was someone who had been trained by experts. "The Empire teaches that humans are primitive," she said as she worked. "That your technology is crude. That your culture is barbaric. That is what I was taught since I was a child. And now?" She looked up at him. Her eyes were strange, sad and curious at the same time. "Now, I sit in a human ship, being protected by a human soldier, hiding from the most powerful force in the galaxy, and I am starting to think that everything I was taught was a lie." She finished wrapping his arm with clean bandages. Then she sat back in her chair and looked out at the stars. "Tell me about Earth," she said. "Tell me about humanity. Not the version the Empire teaches. The real version." Do-yoon was quiet for a moment. He thought about home. He had not been back to Earth in over 10 years. Sometimes he wondered if he ever would again, but the memories were still there. Buried deep, but never forgotten. "Earth is small," he said. "Compared to the worlds the Empire controls, it is tiny. One planet around an ordinary star on the edge of an unremarkable galaxy. Nothing special. That is what the Empire sees when they look at us." "What do you see?" Do-yoon smiled. It was a rare expression on his face. "I see a planet that learned to survive everything. Ice ages, plagues, wars, disasters that should have destroyed us. Again and again, we were pushed to the edge of extinction. And again, we came back." He leaned back in his chair, his eyes distant. "Humans are not strong like the Solaran. We do not live as long as the Vethrani. We cannot see in the dark like the Korath, but we have something they do not have. We refuse to give up. No matter how bad things get, no matter how impossible the odds, some part of us keeps fighting." "Why?" Yuna asked. "What makes you keep fighting when others would surrender?" "I do not know," Do-yoon admitted. "Maybe it is because we are afraid. We know how fragile we are. We know how easily we can die. So we fight harder than anyone else to stay alive. Or maybe it is something else. Maybe we fight because we believe that some things are worth dying for." "What things?" "Family, freedom, the people we love." He looked at her. "Strangers in dark alleys who need help." Yuna was silent for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was soft. "The Empire has controlled the galaxy for 10,000 years. In all that time, No species has ever truly resisted them. Some fought, but they always lost. Some surrendered before the first shot was fired. The Empire believes it is inevitable, that all species will eventually bow to Solaran power. And then humanity appeared, Doyun said. Yes. A young species, barely capable of traveling between stars. The Empire expected you to surrender within a generation. Instead, you hid. You scattered. You built secret colonies in places we could not find. And when we did find you, you fought. Not to win, just to buy time. To protect your people long enough to escape. She shook her head in wonder. The Empire does not understand you. They see your weakness and think you should give up. They do not understand that your weakness is what makes you strong. You know you can lose. You know you can die. That is the human way, Doyun said. We do not fight because we think we will win. We fight because losing without fighting is worse than dying. Yuna looked at him with something like respect. The soldiers who raised me said that honor comes from strength. That true warriors are those who never lose. But I think they were wrong. True warriors are those who fight even when they know they might lose. The Empire will never understand that, Doyun said. They have been on top for so long that they have forgotten what it means to struggle. They have forgotten what it means to fight from below. Yes, Yuna said quietly. They have forgotten many things. There was pain in her voice. Old pain. Buried deep. Doyun saw it in her eyes. This woman had grown up inside the Empire. She had been raised on its lies. But somewhere along the way, she had started to see the truth. And that truth had cost her something. Maybe everything. Who are you really? He asked again. Why does the Emperor want you dead? Yuna closed her eyes. For a moment, she looked impossibly tired. The weight of secrets pressing down on her shoulders. The shadows were sent to kill me because I ran, she said. I learned something terrible. Something the Emperor is planning. A final solution to the human problem. He is going to find your hidden colonies and destroy them. All of them. Every man, woman, and child. Complete extinction. Doyun felt ice spread through his chest. How do you know this? Yuna opened her eyes. She looked at him with a gaze that was suddenly very old. Because my father told me himself. The night before he announced it to his war council. Her voice broke. My father. The Emperor. The ship drifted in silence. The asteroids floated past like ancient ghosts. And Doyun sat frozen, staring at the woman in front of him. The Emperor's daughter. The heir to the Solaran throne. Sitting in his ship. Running from her own family. You are the princess, he said. The words sounded hollow. My name is Park Hyun, she said. The universe shifted around Doyun. Everything he thought he knew about this woman. About this situation. About his own role in it. Crumbled like sand. He was not just protecting a stranger anymore. He was protecting the most dangerous person in the galaxy. And he had no idea what to do next. The silence in the cockpit lasted a long time. Doyun sat very still, his mind racing through 1,000 thoughts. The Emperor's daughter. Doyun. Learning Bowl. And Doyun. 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 The heir to the largest empire in the galaxy. She had been traveling with him for days, eating his food, sleeping in his ship, trusting him with her life. And he had not known. Part of him wanted to be angry. She had lied to him. She had put him in danger without telling him the truth. But when he looked at her face, he saw something that cooled his anger. She was afraid, not of the Empire, or the shadows, or even of him. She was afraid of what he would do, now that he knew. Say something, Hyun whispered. I do not know what to say, Doyun admitted. I have spent 5 years running from your empire. Your father's soldiers have tried to kill me more times than I can count, and now I discover that I have been protecting his daughter. His former daughter, Hayun said bitterly. The moment I ran, I stopped being his child. I became another enemy. Another problem to be eliminated. Why did you run? Hayun stood and walked to the window. The asteroids floated past in their endless dance. She watched them for a moment before speaking. I was raised to be the perfect heir. I studied politics, military strategy, economics, medicine. Everything an empress would need to know. I was taught that the Solaron Empire was the greatest civilization in history, that our rule brought order to a chaotic galaxy, that the other species should be grateful for our guidance. Number 4. Number 4. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. I believed it. All of it. I thought we were the heroes. I thought the species who resisted us were foolish, ungrateful, dangerous, especially humans. My tutors taught me that humans were the most dangerous of all. Violent, unpredictable, impossible to civilize. And then, Doyun prompted, and then my father brought me into his war council. He said it was time for me to learn how empires really worked. He showed me reports, casualty numbers, videos of battles. He showed me what our soldiers did to human colonies when they found them. Her voice grew harder. Children, Doyun, they killed children. They burned homes and crops and ships. They destroyed everything and called it victory. And my father smiled. He said it was necessary. He said that humanity was a disease that needed to be cut out of the galaxy before it spread. She turned to face him. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears. I looked at those videos, and I saw something different. I saw families fighting to protect each other. I saw people who had nothing, using whatever they could find as weapons. I saw them lose, again and again, and still refuse to surrender. And I realized that everything I had been taught was wrong. That is when you decided to run? No. That is when I decided to change things from the inside. I thought I could convince my father. I thought I could show him that there was another way. I spent months gathering evidence, talking to advisors, trying to find allies who might support a different approach. She shook her head. I was naive. The Empire has been doing this for 10,000 years. They do not know any other way. And my father, her voice broke. My father called me weak. He said I had been corrupted by human propaganda. He said that the final solution was already in motion, and nothing could stop it. The plan to destroy the hidden colonies. Yes. Imperial intelligence has been working for years to locate every human settlement, every hidden station, every secret base. They have found most of them. The attack fleet is already gathering. In 3 months, they will launch the largest military operation in Imperial history. Complete extinction of the human species. The words hit Doyun like physical blows. He had always known the Empire wanted humanity destroyed. But knowing and hearing the date, knowing it was only 3 months away, that was different. That made it real. How many colonies have they found? 17. Including the largest ones. Earth's coordinates are protected by codes that even my father cannot break. But everything else. Hayun shook her head. Millions of people, maybe tens of millions, all scheduled to die. Doyun stood abruptly. He could not sit still anymore. He paced the small cockpit, his fists clenched. Rage burned in his chest like fire. For 5 years he had run and hidden and survived. For 5 years he had told himself that humanity would find a way, that they were tougher than the Empire realized, that they would endure. Now he knew the truth. The Empire was coming, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Why are you telling me this? He asked. Why did you run to the frontier? What was your plan? I did not have a plan, Hayun admitted. I just knew I could not be part of it. I could not stand in my father's war room and watch him order the death of an entire species. So I ran. I stole a small ship and flew to the most remote part of the galaxy I could find. I thought I could disappear. I thought I could at least save myself from becoming a monster. And instead, you found me. Yes. She looked at him. A human soldier. A terrorist by Imperial standards. The last person in the galaxy who should have helped me. She stepped closer to him. But you did help me. You fought for me. You saved my life without knowing who I was. I would have done the same for anyone. Doyun said, I know. That is why I am telling you the truth now. Because you deserve to know. And because I think. She hesitated. I think maybe I can still help. I know Imperial codes. I know military protocols. I know the locations of the attack staging areas. Maybe that information can save some of your people. End quote. Doyun stopped pacing. He looked at her with new eyes. Not as a princess or an enemy or a responsibility. As a person who had given up everything to do what was right. There is a place, he said slowly. A hidden colony. One of the ones the Empire has not found. I know the coordinates. It is small, maybe 5,000 people. Farmers, teachers, families. They are good people. What are you saying? I am saying that if you really want to help, you need to see what you are trying to save. You need to meet the people the Empire calls animals. You need to see how they live, how they love, how they fight. Hayun's eyes widened. You would take me there? To a human colony? They would kill me if they knew who I was. Probably, Doyun agreed. But they will not know. As far as anyone is concerned, you are a refugee. I picked up on Kira 7. No name. No history. Just another lost soul looking for shelter. Why would you take that risk? Doyun looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, an empire was preparing to end his species. Somewhere out there, millions of his people were living their lives without knowing how little time they had left. He could not save all of them. He probably could not save any of them. But maybe he could do one thing. He could show this woman the truth. The real truth. Not the one her father's propaganda had created. And maybe, just maybe, that would matter. Because you gave up your throne to save strangers, he said. That deserves something in return. He sat back down at the controls and began entering coordinates. The colony is called New Dawn. It will take us 4 days to reach it. During that time, you will tell me everything you know about the attack plans, every detail, every ship, every target. And then we will figure out what to do next. Together, Hayun watched him work. Her face was unreadable, but her eyes were bright. For the first time since she had fled the palace, she felt something other than fear. She felt hope. Thank you, she said quietly. Doyun did not answer. He was already plotting the course, his mind working through the problems ahead. 4 days to reach the colony. 3 months until the attacks began. 1 princess with imperial secrets in her head. 1 soldier with nothing left to lose. It was not much. But it was a start. The Baiko came to life around them, its engines humming as it began to move. The asteroids fell away behind them, and the stars stretched out ahead, endless and unknown. Whatever came next, they would face it together. And somewhere in the darkness, a new chapter was beginning. That was the first thing Hayun thought when the Baiko dropped out of faster-than-light travel, and the colony appeared on the view screen. A small moon orbiting a gas giant, green with forests and blue with lakes. It looked like paradise. Doyun had contacted the colony before they arrived. He used old military codes that only a few people still remembered. The colony leaders were suspicious at first. A wanted fugitive bringing a stranger to their hidden home? It sounded like a trap. But Doyun had friends here. People who owed him their lives from the old days. They vouched for him, and the colony agreed to let them land. The landing pad was surrounded by trees. When Hayun stepped off the ship, she smelled flowers and fresh soil. Birds sang in the distance. Children ran past, laughing at some game only they understood. An old man sat on a bench, reading a book in the afternoon sun. It was so different from the cold metal hallways of the imperial palace. So different from anything she had ever known. "Welcome to New Dawn," Doyun said. Hayun could not speak. Her throat was tight with emotions she could not name. For her entire life, she had been taught that humans were savages, that their colonies were dirty and chaotic and dangerous. But this place was peaceful. This place was home. They spent 2 weeks in the colony. Doyun introduced Hayun as a refugee named Yuna, and the colonists accepted her without question. They were used to strangers appearing from the darkness of space. Everyone here had been running from something once. Hayun learned how the colony worked. She helped in the gardens, pulling weeds alongside old women who told jokes and sang old songs from Earth. She helped in the school, watching children learn mathematics and history and art. She helped in the clinic, using her medical training to assist the overworked doctors. And slowly, she began to understand. These people were not the monsters her father had described. They were not violent, or cruel, or dangerous. They were families. Mothers who worried about their children. Fathers who worked hard to provide for their homes. Old people who remembered Earth with tears in their eyes. Young people who dreamed of a future without fear. One evening, Hayun sat with a woman named Kim Sora. She was elderly, with white hair and gentle eyes. She had been one of the first settlers on New Dawn, 50 years ago. "You look troubled, child," Sora said. "I was thinking about the future," Hayun admitted. "About what might happen to this place," Sora smiled sadly. "We all think about that. The Empire is always out there, searching. Someday they might find us. We know this. Does it not frighten you? Of course it does. But fear does not stop life. We still plant our gardens. We still teach our children. We still laugh and love and hope, because that is what it means to be human. We do not wait for the end. We live until it comes." Hayun felt tears prick her eyes. She thought of the War Council. She thought of her father's cold smile as he spoke of extinction. He would never understand these people. He would never see them as anything but problems to be solved. But she saw them now. She saw them clearly. The next morning, everything changed. Doyun woke her before dawn. His face was grim, his eyes hard. She knew immediately that something was wrong. "Imperial fleet," he said. 6 ships. They dropped out of faster than light an hour ago. They are surrounding the moon." Hayun's blood turned to ice. "How did they find us?" "I do not know. Maybe a spy. Maybe bad luck. It does not matter now." They ran to the colony's central building. The leaders were already gathered there. Council members, militia captains, ordinary citizens. Fear filled the room like smoke. "We received their message," one of the leaders said. He was a tall man named Choi Junwoo. His voice shook as he spoke. "They know the princess is here. They are demanding we hand her over. If we do, they will spare the colony. If we refuse..." He did not finish the sentence. He did not have to. Every eye in the room turned to Hayun. Some were angry. Some were afraid. Some were simply confused. The princess of the Solaran Empire, hiding among them? It was impossible. It was insane. "Is it true?" someone asked. "You are the Emperor's daughter?" Hayun stood straight. She would not hide anymore. She would not lie. These people had welcomed her into their homes. They deserved the truth. "Yes," she said. "My name is Park Hayun. I am the heir to the Solaran throne. I fled because my father is planning to destroy every human colony in the galaxy. I came here to warn you. I came here to help." Silence, then chaos. People shouted. Some demanded that she be thrown to the Empire immediately. Others defended her. Arguments broke out across the room. Do-yoon stepped forward. His voice cut through the noise like a blade. Enough. The room fell silent. Everyone knew who Do-yoon was. Everyone knew what he had done. When he spoke, people listened. This woman gave up everything to save strangers, he said. She abandoned her throne, her family, her entire life. She came to us not as a princess, but as a refugee. She worked in our gardens. She helped our doctors. She sat with our elders and played with our children. She did not do these things because she wanted something. She did them because she believed they were right. He looked around the room. If we hand her over, she dies. That is certain. And what do we get in return? The promise of an empire that has lied to us for generations? The word of people who have hunted us like animals for 50 years? He shook his head. I did not survive this long by trusting imperial promises. I survived by fighting, by refusing to give up, by protecting the people around me. No matter who they were, he turned to face the council. I say we fight. I say we show the Empire what happens when they threaten our home. And I say we protect this woman, not because she was born a princess, but because she chose to become something better. The room was silent again. But this time, it was a different silence. The fear was still there, but something else had joined it. Something that looked like courage. Junwoo stepped forward. We are 5,000 people against 6 warships. We have no fleet. We have no heavy weapons. How can we possibly fight? The same way we have always fought, Do-yoon said. Together, he began explaining. The colony had defenses the Empire did not know about. Underground tunnels, hidden weapons caches, mining charges that could collapse entire mountains. They would not beat the Empire in a straight fight. But they did not need to. They just needed to survive long enough for something to change. And what if nothing changes? Someone asked. What if we fight and die anyway? Do-yoon looked at Hyun. She looked back at him. In that moment, an understanding passed between them. They both knew the odds. They both knew this might be the end. Then we die free, Do-yoon said. We die, knowing we never surrendered. We die, showing the entire galaxy what humans are made of. The vote was held that evening. It was close. Many people wanted to give Hyun up. Many people were afraid for their children, their homes, their lives, but in the end, the decision was made. New Dawn would fight. That night, Hyun stood at the edge of the colony and looked up at the stars. Somewhere above, Imperial warships waited. Somewhere above, soldiers prepared to destroy everything these people had built. Do-yoon appeared beside her. He did not say anything. He just stood there, a solid presence in the darkness. I am sorry, Hyun said. This is my fault. I brought them here. No, Do-yoon said. They would have found us eventually. The Empire always finds us. You just gave us something worth fighting for. What is that? Hope. He looked at her. You are the Emperor's daughter, and you chose us. You chose to stand with the species your father wants to destroy. That matters. That gives people something to believe in. Hyun felt tears running down her face. She had never asked to be a symbol. She had never asked to matter. But somehow, in this small colony on the edge of nothing, she had become both. I do not want people to die for me, she whispered. They are not dying for you, Do-yoon said. They are dying for each other, for their children, for the idea that some things are worth fighting for. He put a hand on her shoulder. That is the human way. We fight not because we think we will win, but because we refuse to lose, without trying. Above them, the stars burned cold and distant. Tomorrow, the battle would begin. Tomorrow, they would fight against impossible odds. But tonight, they stood together, and that was enough. Dropships fell from the sky like metal rain. Each one carried 40 soldiers in full combat armor. The Empire was not taking chances. They had sent their best troops, their heaviest weapons, their most experienced commanders. They expected the colony to fall within hours. They were wrong. The first dropship exploded before it even touched the ground. A mining charge buried in the landing zone tore it apart in a ball of flame. The second and third ships landed safely, but their soldiers marched directly into kill zones that had been prepared days ago. Hidden defenders opened fire from fortified positions. The trees that looked so peaceful hid traps and ambushes. Do-yoon commanded from the center of the colony. He had no army, no real soldiers. What he had was 5,000 people who refused to give up. Farmers who had learned to shoot, teachers who had learned to fight, elderly men and women who manned communication stations and medical tents. Second wave incoming from the north. A voice reported through his communicator. 40 soldiers. Heavy weapons. Pull back to position Delta, Do-yoon ordered. Let them advance. Trigger the charges when they reach the marker. 22. He watched on the colony's jury-rigged scanner system as the Imperial soldiers marched forward confidently. They had superior numbers. They had superior firepower. They had been told this would be easy. The ground exploded beneath their feet. The colonists did not fight like a regular army. They could not afford to. Instead, they fought like ghosts. They appeared from tunnels, fired, and vanished before the enemy could respond. They collapsed buildings on advancing troops. They flooded corridors with smoke and used it for cover. Every time the Imperials thought they understood the situation, something changed. Hyun worked in the medical tent. Wounded were brought to her constantly. Burns, broken bones, energy weapon wounds. She treated them all with steady hands and a calm voice. Her Imperial medical training had never been meant for this, but she adapted. Humans always adapted. "You are doing well," an elderly doctor told her. His name was Baek Minho. He had been working without rest for 6 hours. "I wish I could do more," Hyun said. "You are doing enough." He smiled tiredly. "You know, when they told us who you really were, I was angry. I thought you were the enemy. But watching you work..." He shook his head. "I have seen many people over the years. Good and bad. Brave and cowardly. You are one of the good ones. Child, I am glad you are here." Outside, the battle continued. The Imperials pushed deeper into the colony, but every meter cost them dearly. Bodies in Imperial armor lay in the streets. Smoke rose from burning buildings. The sound of weapons fire echoed constantly, but the colonists were losing too. For every Imperial soldier that fell, a defender also fell. The numbers were against them. Slowly, inevitably, the Empire was winning. Do-yoon found Hyun at the medical tent that evening. His face was covered in dirt and ash. There was blood on his hands, though she could not tell if it was his or someone else's. "How bad?" she asked. "Bad. We have lost the outer districts. They are pushing toward the center. We can hold them for maybe another day. But after that..." He did not finish the sentence. "What do we do?" Do-yoon looked at her. His eyes were hard, determined, fierce. "We do what humans have always done. We fight until we cannot fight anymore. And then we fight some more." That night, he gathered the remaining defenders. Maybe 300 people. Farmers, mechanics, teachers, people who had never imagined they would die in battle. They looked tired and scared and determined all at once. "The Empire thinks this is over," Do-yoon told them. "They think we are finished. They are waiting for us to surrender, to give up, to accept our fate." He paused. "They do not know us very well." Someone laughed. It was a tired sound, but it was real. "Tomorrow, they will push for the center. They expect us to dig in and wait for them. Instead, we are going to attack. Murmurs of surprise ran through the crowd. There is a flagship in orbit. The command ship. If we can reach it, if we can take it, the rest of the fleet will fall into chaos. Without orders from above, the soldiers on the ground will be confused, vulnerable. How do we reach a ship in orbit? Someone asked. We have 3 cargo shuttles, Doyun said. Old, slow, unarmed. But they can carry 20 people each. The flagship will not expect an attack from the surface. They think we are trapped, helpless. We use that against them. It was insane. 60 people in unarmed shuttles against a fully armed warship. The odds were impossible. But then, everything about this fight had been impossible. Hayun stepped forward. I can help. I know Imperial ship layouts. I know their security protocols. I know the access codes for the flagship's command bridge. Doyun looked at her. It will be dangerous. More dangerous than anything we have done so far. I know. She met his eyes without flinching. I did not come this far to hide in a medical tent. These people are fighting for me. The least I can do is fight with them. Doyun studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. They launched before dawn. The 3 shuttles rose from the colony like sparks flying up from a fire. Below, the remaining defenders launched a massive assault, drawing the attention of the Imperial forces on the ground. Above, the flagship sat in orbit, confident and unaware. The first shuttle was destroyed by defensive fire. 20 people gone in an instant. The second shuttle took damage, but kept flying. The third, carrying Doyun and Hayun, slipped through a gap in the defenses and crashed into the flagship's docking bay. What followed was chaos. 40 colonists against hundreds of Imperial crew members. It should have been a slaughter. Instead, it was a nightmare for the Empire. The colonists fought with desperate fury. They used every trick, every tactic, every dirty strategy that generations of survival had taught them. They turned corridors into kill zones. They hacked systems and caused chaos throughout the ship. They refused to die. Doyun led the assault on the bridge. 10 people against the flagship's elite guard. They lost 5 in the first minute. 4 more in the second. By the time they reached the bridge door, only Doyun and Hayun remained. The door was sealed. Imperial guards were coming from behind. They had maybe 30 seconds before they were surrounded. Hayun pulled out a data chip. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. My father gave me override codes for emergencies. He never imagined I would use them like this. She plugged the chip into the door's console. Lights flashed. Alarms blared. And then, impossibly, the door opened. The bridge crew stared at them in shock. The princess of the Solaran Empire, covered in blood and dirt, standing beside a human terrorist. It was like something from a nightmare. Shut down the fleet, Hayun ordered. All ships, stand down immediately. Your Highness, we cannot. I am not asking. Her voice was cold and hard, nothing like the gentle woman who had worked in the medical tent. This was the voice of an empress. Stand down or I will tear this ship apart with my own hands. She meant it. They could see it in her eyes. The princess they had been sent to rescue had become something else entirely. Something dangerous. One by one, the bridge crew lowered their weapons. Down on the moon's surface, the Imperial soldiers received new orders. Cease fire. Withdraw. Return to the ships. The battle was over. New dawn had survived. That night, the colonists celebrated. It was a sad celebration, mixed with grief for the fallen. Too many had died. Too many would never see another sunrise. But they had won. Against impossible odds, against the mightiest empire in the galaxy, 5,000 people had fought and won. Doyun found Hayun sitting alone at the edge of the colony. She was staring up at the stars, her face unreadable. You saved us, he said. We saved each other. She looked at him. I gave orders today. I threatened people. I used my father's codes to override his own soldiers. She shook her head. I am not sure who I am anymore. You are who you choose to be, Doyun said. Hayun laughed. It was a broken sound, half sob, half joy. I am Solaran. I will never be human. Being human is not about blood. It is about choice. It is about standing up for what is right, even when it costs you everything. Doyun sat down beside her. Today, you were more human than most humans I have ever known. Above them, the stars burned cold and bright. Somewhere out there, an empire was waking up to the impossible news. A human colony had defeated an imperial fleet. The emperor's own daughter had betrayed him. Everything was about to change. On 100 worlds, in 1,000 stations, people watched footage of the battle. They saw farmers fighting soldiers. They saw teachers carrying weapons. They saw an elderly doctor treating wounded while explosions shook the walls around him. They saw 5,000 people standing against an empire and refusing to fall. And they saw the princess. The imperial media tried to control the story. They called Hayun a traitor, a madwoman, a terrorist who had betrayed her own blood. They promised that justice would come, that the rebellion would be crushed, that the natural order would be restored. But the footage was everywhere. People saw a young woman standing on the bridge of a warship, her clothes torn, her face dirty, her voice steady as she ordered an end to the attack. They saw her eyes, fierce and unafraid, staring down soldiers who had come to capture her. They saw someone who had given up everything for what she believed was right. The empire had always told its subjects that the royal family was chosen by destiny, that they were superior beings, blessed with wisdom and power beyond ordinary people. Now they saw one of those superior beings choosing to stand with the lowest species in the galaxy. They saw her bleeding and fighting and refusing to surrender. It changed things. 3 weeks after the battle, Hayun recorded a message. She sat in the colony's meeting hall, surrounded by the people who had become her family. Doyun stood beside her, his arms crossed, his face calm. Behind them, the flag of New Dawn hung on the wall, a simple design of stars on a dark field. People of the Empire, Hayun began. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly, where they rested on her lap. I am Park Hayun. You know me as the daughter of Emperor Park Taejun. You know me as the heir to the Solaran throne. You have been told that I am a traitor, a criminal, a madwoman. She paused, gathering her strength. I am going to tell you the truth. She spoke for an hour. She told them about her childhood in the palace, about the lessons she learned, the lies she was taught, the propaganda that shaped her understanding of the galaxy. She told them about the War Council, about her father's plan to destroy humanity, about the day she realized that everything she believed was wrong. She told them about New Dawn, about the farmers who welcomed her without knowing who she was, about the children who played in the gardens, and the old people who shared stories of Earth, about a community that asked for nothing except the chance to live in peace. She told them about the battle, about people who fought with farming tools and mining charges because they had nothing else, about doctors who treated the wounded while bombs fell around them, about a mother who died protecting her children from imperial soldiers. And she told them about Doyun, about a man who saved a stranger in a dark alley without asking why, about a soldier who had spent 5 years running from the Empire, yet still found the courage to protect people he did not know. The Empire teaches that humans are animals, Hayun said, that they are violent and primitive and dangerous. I believed this once. I believed it until I saw the truth with my own eyes. She leaned forward, looking directly into the camera. Humans are not what we were taught. They are people. Just people. They love their families. They work hard. They dream of a better future. They are no different from us, except in one way. They refuse to give up. No matter how many times they are beaten down, no matter how impossible the odds, they keep fighting, not because they think they will win, but because they believe some things are worth fighting for. She took a deep breath. My father wants to destroy them. He has gathered a fleet larger than any in Imperial history. He plans to find every hidden human colony and burn it to ash. He calls this justice. He calls this order. I call it murder. I renounce my claim to the throne, she declared. I will never sit on my father's chair. I will never rule his empire. But I will not hide either. I will stand with these people. I will fight beside them. And if the empire comes again, I will be here. We will be here. She gestured to the people around her. Farmers and teachers and doctors. Old and young. Human and, now, Solaran. This is not my colony. This is not my world. But these are my people now. They welcomed me when I had nowhere else to go. They protected me when my own family wanted me dead. They showed me what true strength looks like. Her voice grew stronger. True strength is not in weapons or armies or empires. True strength is in the choice to do what is right, even when it costs you everything. True strength is in standing with strangers because you believe they deserve to live. True strength is in refusing to be part of something evil, even if fighting it means you might die. She stood up. Father, if you are watching this, know that I am not afraid. I know you will send your fleets. I know you will try to destroy us, but you will fail. Not because we are stronger than you, but because we are fighting for something real. We are fighting for each other. And that is something your empire will never understand. To everyone else watching, I say this. The empire can be stopped. Not by armies or fleets, but by ordinary people choosing to do what is right. By refusing to accept that some species are worth less than others. By standing up and saying no. This is not who we want to be. She looked at Do-yoon. He nodded slightly, his face unreadable but his eyes warm. I do not know what the future holds, Ha-yoon concluded. I do not know if we will survive what is coming. But I know one thing for certain. I would rather die free than live as part of something I am ashamed of. My name is Park Ha-yoon. I stand with humanity, and I am not going anywhere. End 1. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, people watched in silence. In imperial palaces and frontier stations, in warships and trading vessels, in homes and schools and prisons, the message played again and again. Some were angry. Some were confused. Some were afraid. But some, a few at first, but more, every day, felt something else. Something that had been buried for generations under propaganda and fear. Hope. On New Dawn, the colonists were already rebuilding. The battle had damaged many buildings, destroyed crops and equipment, but they worked together, as they always had. Human and Solaran, side by side. Ha-yoon dug ditches with farmers. Do-yoon helped rebuild homes with carpenters. The lines between them blurred until no one remembered they had ever been enemies. That evening, Do-yoon found Ha-yoon standing at the edge of the colony, looking up at the stars. It had become her favorite place. She said the stars reminded her how small her problems were compared to the universe. The bounty on my head just doubled, Do-yoon said. Apparently saving a colony and capturing a flagship does not make the empire happy. Ha-yoon laughed. It was a real laugh, full of warmth and exhaustion and something like peace. My father has declared me dead, officially erased from the royal records. I do not exist anymore. How do you feel about that? She thought for a moment. Free. I am not an heir or a symbol or a weapon. I am just Ha-yoon. Just Ha-yoon is pretty impressive, Do-yoon said. She saved a colony. She turned an empire upside down. She convinced a cynical old soldier that there was still something worth fighting for. Ha-yoon looked at him. What happens now? Do-yoon shrugged. Now we keep fighting. Your father will send more ships, more soldiers, He cannot let this stand. If one colony can resist, others might try. He has to destroy us to prove that resistance is useless. Can we win? Probably not. Doyun smiled, and for once it reached his eyes. But since when has that ever stopped us? Above them, the stars burned cold and bright. Somewhere out there, an empire plotted revenge. Somewhere out there, people were watching Hayun's message and feeling something they had not felt in years. And on a small moon called New Dawn, a soldier and a princess stood side by side, looking up at the universe they had decided to fight for. Well, Doyun said, at least things will not be boring. Hayun laughed again. And for one perfect moment, the future did not seem so dark. Hope was alive. Humanity had remembered how to fight, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. The stars watched in silence. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had seen species born and die. They had seen a billion stories play out across a billion worlds. But this story was different. This story was just beginning, and somewhere in the darkness, a new dawn was rising.